just, it's ocean science and most science. There's a whole wide range of jobs. In ocean science, you could be a researcher, you could be a teacher, you could be an undersea photographer, you could work on policy. So the jobs and the pay range from if you were maybe a graphic artist or an assistant, you know, maybe, I don't know, 50,000 up to 200, 300,000. A researcher, it varies. Basically, it's just like most jobs. Your pay goes up as you've been there longer doing it more. So you start pretty low, but then as you gain experience and in a university position, you gain in salary. Most scientists who are doing well are living comfortably. But you're not going to be a rock star. But I will tell you, the thing about ocean science, and I've asked a lot of my colleagues about this, they don't do it for the money. They do it for the love of their job and the curiosity. The people I know can't wait to go to work. I mean, there are days when I'm out there and I'm thinking, people pay me to do this? I love my job. And so to me, you really, when you guys decide what you want to do, you have to balance, can you make a decent living? And do you like what you're doing? And I think ocean science is one where you really find a great balance between the two. Right there. Where did I do my undergraduate? My undergraduate I did at Wesleyan University in Connecticut. But let me say, there's a kind of a misconception about ocean science in general, and I think maybe a lot of other sciences. As an undergraduate, you need a solid background in science. You're not going to become a marine biologist as an undergraduate. You need a solid background in math, physics, biology, chemistry, geology. I studied environmental science with a concentration in geology as an undergraduate. I took a semester away and studied at a marine lab for one semester, and that made a huge difference for me. And then I went to graduate school, and that's where I really focused in on marine science. And so if any of you are interested in oceanography or marine science, make sure you get the best education you can as an undergraduate in science. And couple that with trying to volunteer, get summer jobs, see if you can work with a scientist, work in an aquarium, because it's also about networking. It's also about meeting people and talking to them. So undergraduate, a good, solid science education is critical. Right here?
How old were you when you decided to actually go into ocean?
How old was I when I decided to go into ocean? I'll tell you a little funny story. And I didn't know I was going to go into ocean science when this happened. In high school, I was lifeguarding in a pool, and the guys I worked with brought a scuba tank to the pool. And they said, hey, you want to try this? I said, cool. I'll do it. Put the scuba tank on, and they were like, okay, come out of the pool now. That's enough. I was like, this is cool. I'm staying down here. And I went to my parents, and I said, I want to learn to scuba dive. And they said, oh, sure, you've got a car, a job, you can pay for it. And they thought it was like a phase. Little did they know what was going to happen. So in high school, I started getting interested in scuba diving, and then I would say in college, and I was always interested in nature. I used to run around the woods, play naturalist as a kid, but in college, I really found a place where I could combine my love for the outdoors and diving and curiosity with nature and science. And I will tell you the other thing is I met really cool people. I'm a big athlete, so I met people who are athletic and funny, and their job was to go out diving on coral reefs. And really, I was like, hey, I want to be like them. So that was a big part of it. And I'll just tell you one other story, because I think it's really an important message for all of you is, you know, that job I got as a safety diver, people say, well, how'd you get it? When I was studying as an undergraduate in St. Croix, I had a bike with me. I got on my bike. We had been on a field trip to the undersea lab. I got on my bike. I cycled halfway across the island. I went to the undersea lab, and I said, do you have any summer jobs? And they said, are you a certified scuba diver, and can you pick up these tanks? I said, yes. And they said, you've got a job. I went back to the lab where all the other students were, 49 other students, albeit, and guess what they all said? How'd you get that job? And the bottom line is, I asked. Because the worst that is ever going to happen to you if you try and ask for something is somebody's going to say no. So what? But they might say yes. And so if you're interested in a job, an internship, volunteering, whatever it is, do not be afraid to ask. They're not going to fall in your lap, because the worst that's going to happen, they're going to say no. What does that matter? But the best thing is they might say yes. Other questions?
I have a very practical question. How do you go to the bathroom when you're
Oh, I was waiting for that question. Come on, you guys were all thinking it. How do you go to the bathroom? Okay, there's two means. There is a small toilet inside the Aquarius Undersea Lab with a little tiny curtain around it. But you don't have much privacy, and honestly, the toilet gets clogged a lot, and nobody likes that in a very closed-in atmosphere. So the preferred method is to become one with the sea. Do it with the fish. So you go outside the habitat, but there's a little problem with that. Human wastes are yummy fish food. And some fish, in fact, are rather aggressive. And I will tell you that there has been blood drawn in a sensitive male part. But the fish, people always say to us, man, those fish are healthy around the undersea lab. And we're like, yeah. And there's no problem with, if any of you are, well, I'm an environmentalist. There's no problem with pollution. The fish eat it right up. And we have people studying nutrients. There's no raised level around the undersea lab, believe me. I think there was a question in the back. Yep. Have I ever been in any dangerous situations under the sea? I have been in a situation where sharks have come in a little too close, but I will tell you most of the time you know it, and you get out of the water, and that's, they were just behaving a little bit aggressively. They never tried to bite us. Sea lion, and then probably of my own making. I made a mistake once. Well, I don't know if it was my mistake or I had faulty equipment, but I ran out of air at about 110 feet and had to make an emergency ascent. And it sounds scary, but I have been through a lot of training. And this is why it's so important, no matter what you're doing, is to be prepared and go through the training you need. And so I knew what to do, which is blow your air out. There was enough, it felt like I didn't have any air, but I knew I had enough to exhale on my way to the surface. And so, and when I got to the surface, I got a bottle of oxygen and sucked it down just in case, and I was fine. But again, I'm not sure whether it was just my complacency of being so comfortable in the water that I hadn't looked at my gauges, but I actually think there was a leak in the tank. But otherwise, not really. The hurricane was pretty scary. But we had a really good crew and an excellent ship. And again, with the correct preparation, you can be in dangerous situations, but you know how to handle them. Other questions? Uh-huh. Are there any poisonous things that you have to look out for? There's actually not that many things in the ocean to be scared of. There are a few things, though. And I wouldn't say poisonous. There are things that have toxins in them, like sea urchins, black spiny sea urchins, and I have gotten a lot of those things in my fingers. And it hurts, but it goes away. You have to watch out for some jellyfish. There are like stonefish. There are some stonefish that you have to be careful of. But again, I know what to look for, and I know where not to go. I will tell you a little funny story. I was in Fiji doing a survey once, and I don't like snakes. But I can't, it's really silly. I'll go swim with that shark. Don't bring a snake near me. So I was in Fiji doing a survey, and they have very poisonous sea snakes in the Pacific. And I was with the guy I was with. I said, did you see any of those snakes around here? And he goes, oh, don't worry. They're very docile. And in fact, somebody one time when I was there grabbed one and said, oh, let me show you. They have tiny mouths. And I'm like, I don't want to find out. But this guy I was with says, oh, no, there's no snakes. But watch where you step, because there are a lot of, stonefish and deadly conch shells were here. And I'm like, oh, great. But again, we were prepared. We had the right kind of shoes on where we were walking. Any other? Yep.
You ever get seasick?
Knock on wood. I am very lucky. I do not get seasick. However, surprisingly, a lot of my colleagues who go to sea over and over and over get seasick. In fact, there's a story in the book from Shirley Pomponi, who does this really, really interesting work where she studies the ocean for she explores for new drugs from the sea, and she goes down in submersibles. And Shirley says her one blessing is that if it's rough enough for her to get seasick, they can't launch the sub. And so she can just go lie down in her bunk. So I don't, but I have a lot of colleagues who continue to go to sea and get seasick. I always think maybe they should have found a different career. Anything else? Oh, one last one.
When you made that emergency ascent,
Right.
How did you keep from getting nitrogen?
Well, the question was, when I made an emergency ascent, how did I prevent getting the bends? The key to not getting the bends is I hadn't overstayed my limit, for one thing, so I was safe under the dive tables, but I exhaled. The whole danger is if you don't exhale, then the excess gas in your body is going to expand on the way up. But if you exhale, that should not be a problem if you're within the dive tables. So that's why I knew I had to exhale on the way up. So, well, thanks so much. If you have more questions, I'm happy to answer them outside.
Wow, that was awesome. Dr. Ellen Prager, everybody, and she will be available. She's going to have her book out there, and she's more than happy to answer any questions you have. So don't go away. We got more coming up. Lawrence.